The worst lie about love isn't found in false stories, but in the ones we believe to be true. Imagine for a moment that you're walking toward that feeling you've idealized so much, with the absolute certainty that you've found that special person. There's Tom, writing greeting cards in an ordinary office, firmly believing he won't achieve complete happiness until he finds his ideal partner. A belief carved in stone by every romantic movie and love song he consumed since childhood. And then, as if straight out of his fantasies, Summer appears. But what happens when the person we believe is perfect isn't who we imagine? When the map we've drawn in our mind doesn't match the real territory? The day Tom saw Summer for the first time in that work meeting, something ignited. She wasn't simply another office girl, but a woman with a special glow, with that dark hair and smile that seemed to illuminate any room. Tom was absolutely captivated, convinced that she was exactly what he had been searching for his entire life. And that's how it all began, with Tom projecting each of his desires and expectations onto someone he barely knew. Someone who, moreover, had a completely different vision of love. "My parents' divorce taught me to want only two things," Summer would confess to him later. "My long hair and the ease with which I can cut it without feeling absolutely nothing." But that wasn't what Tom wanted to hear. It was obvious that a fundamental contradiction existed between the two. Tom, the hopeless romantic who believed in destiny and soulmates. Summer, the skeptic who considered love a fantasy, an illusion that inevitably leads to pain. "I don't believe in love," she told him with complete clarity during that karaoke night when they barely knew each other. "It's a fantasy." Tom simply couldn't accept it. For him, when you're in love, you just know. No doubts, no half measures. And from there, Tom committed the error that we've all made at some point, completely ignoring what the other person is saying because it doesn't fit with the story we want to live. Despite Summer being brutally honest about not wanting a serious relationship, one day she simply approached Tom while they were making copies and kissed him. When they started dating, she was clear. "I only want something casual. Is that okay with you?" And he, blinded by what he felt, accepted. Sure, just fun, nothing serious. While inside, he was crumbling. A tremendous humiliation to himself. Tom never wanted something casual. Tom wanted all or nothing. The truth is that he was willing to accept anything she offered with the hope that eventually she would change her mind. It was imminent that this would end badly. Things got worse when Summer invited Tom to her apartment. That night, while they were lying in bed, she shared a very personal dream with him, a moment of true intimacy. But Tom wasn't really listening. Instead of genuinely connecting with what she was sharing, he could only think about himself, about how special he must be if she was telling him something so intimate. "I've never shared this with anyone," Summer confessed, surprised by her own openness. "I guess I'm not just anyone," he responded, completely oblivious to the real value of what had just happened. And that's where the fundamental problem manifested. Tom wasn't in love with Summer, but with the idea he had of her. He didn't listen to her, didn't see her as she really was. He only valued the moments when she fit his fantasy. Everything collapsed on day 259. After a fight in a bar where Tom tried to defend her honor, something she never asked for, Summer made it clear that she didn't need his protection. Tom, frustrated, finally expressed what he felt, that what they had wasn't a simple friendship, that they were in a relationship. But she had never promised that. In fact, she had always been transparent about what she could offer. Summer was always honest, while Tom kept his true feelings hidden until the pain became unbearable. And to top it all off, weeks later, Summer decided to end what they had because, according to her, they just argued, something that surprised Tom because he barely remembered those arguments. Of course, because the story was being told from his perspective, filtered through his selective memory that only preserved the moments that fit his ideal narrative. It's fucked up to realize that we don't even really know the person we believe we're in love with. "I hate them all. The movies, the songs, the cards. They lie to us," exclaimed Tom the day he quit his job. He had reached the breaking point where he finally saw the cruel reality. The romantic expectations he had nurtured all his life were unrealistic. Because that's the truth nobody tells us. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes two people can love each other, but simply aren't meant to be together. And that, although it hurts like hell, must be accepted. Tom began drawing again, returned to his passion for architecture, cleaned his apartment, small steps toward his recovery. And from there, everything changed. On day 488, Tom and Summer reunited on that park bench where they used to sit contemplating the city. "Why?" asked Tom, still confused. "You never wanted to be anyone's girlfriend, and now you're someone's wife." "I know," she replied with a smile. "One day I just knew. With him, I felt something that was never clear with you." And then Tom understood. It wasn't that Summer didn't believe in love, but that she hadn't found it with him. The problem wasn't love itself, but the compatibility between two specific people. A shame that it took so much time and pain to reach that conclusion. And that's how, on day 500, Tom met Autumn, a symbolic name that represented his maturity after Summer. He was no longer the same Tom who idealized romantic love. Now he understood that real love isn't about projections or expectations, but about seeing the other person as they really are. When he asked her out, he was direct and clear. And when she initially rejected him, he accepted it calmly. Because he had learned that rejection doesn't define his worth. Maybe the one doesn't exist, but rather many potentially compatible people we meet at different moments in our lives, and only when we stop idealizing and start seeing others as they really are with virtues and flaws is when we can build something authentic. The story of Tom and Summer is, in a way, the story of all of us. It impacts us because it reminds us of those loves that began with so much hope and ended in confusion and pain. But the real lesson isn't that love is a lie, but that our expectations about it often are. We expect perfection, immediate synchronicity, and for that person to satisfy all our emotional needs. True love begins when we stop projecting our desires onto the other person and begin to see them as they really are, not as we want them to be. When we understand that no one is obligated to meet our expectations, and that has nothing to do with our worth, but with the simple reality of who we are. Sometimes love simply doesn't work, and that's okay. Because each relationship, even those that end, brings us a little closer to understanding what we truly need. That's the only guarantee we have. Not that we'll find perfect love, but that each experience will teach us something valuable about ourselves.